Okay, great. Again, I apologize for being late. All right, I won't make y'all raise your right hand because it's a long oath. And I hope I've got the right Emerald Area Casa oath. Pulled it out of my briefcase, no telling how long it's been in there. So, but y'all have copies too. So I go a lot slower if y'all don't have copies. So, okay, all right. If y'all would then, and I tell everybody when I say I state your name, don't say state your name. I always have somebody that does that. So. All right, if y'all would repeat after me, I state your name.
I, Jessica Wilson,
Long.
Do solemnly promise and pledge
Do solemnly promise and pledge
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of a court-appointed special advocate
of a
of a
court-appointed
special advocate
as assigned and appointed by the district and county courts of Texas
signed and appointed by district county courts of Texas
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the
best of my ability
preserve the confidentiality
Preserve
the confidentiality
of any and all information received,
of
any and all information
received,
holding all such matters in the strictest confidence,
holding
all such matters in the strictest of confidence,
to be divulged only in accordance
to
be divulged only in accordance
with the rules and guidelines of the courts,
with the
with the rules and guidelines of the courts,
and then only the furtherance
and
only
the
to the furtherance
of the best interests of the child or children.
of the best
of the best interest of the child or children.
All right, one more paragraph. And I furthermore promise and pledge
and
I furthermore promise to pledge
that as a court-appointed special advocate
that as
that as court-appointed special advocate
in carrying out my duties as such,
in carrying out my duties as such,
the paramount concern will be
the
the
paramount
paramount concern will be
the best interests of the child or children
the
the best interest of the child or children
to whom I may be assigned.
to
to
whom
whom I may be assigned.
So help me God.
So help me
So
God.
Help me God.
All right, we got through it. Congratulations. I look forward to working with all of you. I tell all of the advocates that you play such an important role because a lot of these kids, you're the only ones they'll talk to. So I really look forward to working with you. I wish I could appoint Casa to every single case I have, but there's just not enough of you guys to go around. I wish there were. So we try to pick the cases we think you're best used in, and if you ever have a case that you think, okay, things are on track, I think I could be used better somewhere else. Just let somebody there know, and they can get with us, and we'll try to put you where you're best used. So, all right, congratulations, you guys. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay on if you want to and watch some hearings. You can always watch us on YouTube under Northern Panhandle Child Protection Court, just to get a feel for how it is when we're doing it by Zoom. As far as I know, we'll be doing it by Zoom for quite some time. So anyway, congratulations. And again, thank you for what you're doing. It's so important to us. Okay. Sir, if you'd raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ivey.
Will, you're a St. Francis Ministries Permanency Specialist.
That is correct.
And in that capacity, you are familiar with child, the subject of this suit.
I am.
And Wesley turned 18 about a month ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was a little over a month ago. I'd have to pull up my report, but that is correct.
And he had requested that he get to remain in extended care. And you talked with him about extended care.
That's correct.
And he understood that to be eligible for extended care, he had to remain in a placement approved by the department and then either go to school or have a job.
Correct.
And he had been placed in a placement and actually was enrolled in a school, correct?
He was.
Recently, like this week, has that changed?
Yes and no. I mean, he hasn't been in school and hasn't worked. He hasn't been in school since January. He hasn't worked a job since he got to placement about 4 months ago. And he's been threatening to leave placement since about last Friday.
And he in as late as yesterday, he'd been telling you that someone was going to come pick him up. He was maybe going to go to Kentucky.
That is correct.
Have you talked with him this morning?
I have.
And is he still currently at his placement?
He's currently at his placement. Yes, sir.
Now, have they given you notice that he can no longer stay in that placement?
They had given a 30-day notice on him, but they have not enforced it to make us move him. And they really needed to have done that because he doesn't qualify to be there, and it's been well over 30 days.
And at this point in time, he doesn't qualify for extended care because he's not enrolled in school and he's not working.
That is correct.
So what would happen would be that we would have to cancel his extended care. He would go into trial independence. He wouldn't receive any benefits unless he came back and jumped through the hoops that he needs to jump through, which means enroll in school, go to work, and remain at our placement.
That is correct.
Otherwise, I mean, he's healthy. He doesn't always follow the rules. He likes to do things his own way, but there's nothing that is dangerous to his health at this current time. Correct?
Not in an immediate sense. Correct.
He smoked cigarettes, a lot of cigarettes is what I'm understanding. And
yes, sir.
He may be smoking marijuana, which is part of the reason that the placement has asked him to leave.
Correct.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'll pass witness.
So what is it you're asking me to do today?
Judge, I don't think we have a choice but to dismiss our case from extended care and leave him in a trial independence placement at this point in time. It's not a placement. He has trial independence. We can't continue to keep him on the records and keep paying for him if he's not going to do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, he's in the SIL program and that requires one or the other. So,
Right.
Okay. All right. Mr. Turner?
Judge, I don't think I have any questions. I've not spoken with Wesley since these developments. It doesn't sound like he's been in school since January, so I don't know that, like Mr. Rattan and Mr. Alvey said, that as far as continuing the case, that's really an option. Would recommend that he remain in extended care. I do have a hard time getting a hold of him in Houston. So Mr. Rattan, could you maybe when you speak to him, have him reach out to me and let me talk to him?
You bet. I'm going to try to do everything I can to get all of your contact information. Part of the problem is he stopped using the phone that was provided to him by placement, and he's come up with at least 2, if not 3 other phones in just the last few days he's been texting me from, and it's been really confusing.
But otherwise, I guess I do have a couple of questions. Otherwise, he is healthy, like you stated.
Yes.
He just might not always engage in the healthiest behaviors for a young adult.
Correct. He had some problems early in life with his heart. That was taken care of when he was about 5 or 6 years old. He hasn't been sick as far as I know in the time since the last hearing shortly afterwards when I was assigned. Hasn't been sick in that time. He can do anything that he wants to do, and he can Uber all over Houston. He's had a bus pass and can go and do things, but when it comes to just applying for jobs or getting to school, there's just not that desire there, so he fails to do so. So
I mean, he exhibits the ability to take care of himself. He just doesn't always. Is that kind of a good synopsis?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Is there anything in your opinion that the department could do further that would help Wesley?
Well, at this point, he will qualify for some things, including aftercare could work with him if he'll get a job up until 26 years of age. He has that information. He's got his point of contact information, including Terrell Smith being his PAL worker out of Amarillo, and that he knows how to get a hold of me, and I will try to send him some kind of concrete means of getting a hold of me in case his phones are cut off again. But he still should, I think, be able to get into his phone list, to find my number.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. I guess him being able to take care of himself, part of that's because he's had the stipend every month to live off of. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. $400 total.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see how he does when that runs out. So, okay. Mr. Alvey, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Turner, anything to add?
No, Your Honor.
All right. And Casa, Ms. Ledbetter, anything to add?
No, Judge.
Okay. All right. Then I got no choice but to dismiss the extended care case. Wesley will remain in the trial independence phase. I guess, can we leave him in there? What is it? 6 months or 12 months?
Yeah, we would ask for a 6 months review, Your Honor, and then after that, we'll have to let him go.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then we'll just leave him in trial independence period and hope that he comes around. So let me see about a date. I'll set a review hearing for September 22nd, 2023, just to see what's happened. In the meantime, if something comes up, he comes back into care. If we need any type of hearing, just contact my office and we'll set a hearing for that. So,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome. All right, that will conclude this hearing. Mr. Alvey's with us for the department. Ms. Ledbetter's with us for CASA. Mr. Turner's with us representing the child. Mr. Barfield's with us representing the father, Mr. Henry, who I show is incarcerated. And Mr. Adams is with us representing the mother, Ms. Cooper, who I show is incarcerated. Mr. Barfield, Mr. Adams, were you expecting your clients?
Your Honor, I did I spoke to my client yesterday. It's my understanding he's in the Clements unit, and my understanding that we're supposed to try to have him on Zoom today for the hearing.
Okay, I have someone in the waiting room under call-in user. That could possibly be him. So let's get that person in. So the record will reflect that Mr. Henry is with us.
Okay.
Mr. Adams, I noticed your client signed a relinquishment. Were you expecting your client?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. That accounts for everyone. No one's in the waiting room. Mr. Albee, you may proceed.
Your Honor, for the record, this is a continuation of a final hearing that we started less than 90 days ago. At that point in time, we proved up the affidavit of relinquishment and the best interest to terminate Miss Kelly's parental rights to the child. And we stopped at that point in time because Mr. Henry, we had found Mr. Henry, and we've proven up that he is the biological father through DNA, but because he was going to be moved into the Amarillo area, we continued our case.
Okay.
I would call Miss Jasmine Hutchinson. Miss Hutchinson, you're a St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist.
I was at the time I was on the case. Yes.
Okay. So you don't hold that same position now?
No.
Okay. And you recently have turned the case over to Miss Tamara Ring.
That's correct.
But for the primary length of the case, you had been the caseworker for the child, the subject of this case?
Yes, I was her caseworker from March last year to the end of January this year.
And where in January, when you left the case, where was this child placed?
She was placed in her current placement with her biological sister.
And is that placement been the primary placement for this child since birth?
Yes, it has.
And has that placement met all of her needs during her life?
Yes, they have.
Placements made sure she gotten to all of her medical appointments, any dental appointments that she may have needed, and handled any needs that she had.
Yes.
And the placement currently has adopted Audra's older sibling.
That's correct.
And have they made it known to you that they would possibly be willing to adopt Audra if parental rights were terminated?
At the time that I was on the case, that's what they had stated.
You had been in that home. Was there any reasons, any concerns that you had with that home?
Not with the home, no, sir.
And Catherine didn't have any criminal history or any substance abuse history that you're aware of?
No, sir.
Audra's mother became incarcerated right after she gave birth. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
And after almost always thinking she was fixing to be released, she eventually agreed to sign an affidavit of voluntary relinquishment of her parental rights.
That's correct.
She had alleged Douglas Henry as the father to this child.
Yes, sir.
And do you know if Mr. Henry was incarcerated at the time that the child was born?
I wasn't on the case at that time, but I believe that he was initially,
Okay.
but I couldn't tell you 100%.
You took over this case in March of 2022.
That's correct.
Has there been a time since March of 2022 through January of 2023 when Mr. Henry was not incarcerated?
I know there was a period of time where he was out on parole, and we hadn't had any luck on finding him and contacting him. And then I found him whenever he showed up to be reincarcerated in Corpus.
And we were looking for him primarily because we needed to do a DNA test on him.
That's correct.
And did we eventually do a DNA test on Mr. Henry?
Yes, sir.
And was it determined from that DNA test that Mr. Henry is actually the biological father to Audra?
Yes.
And did you reach out to Mr. Henry regularly, making sure to see if he wanted to have services that he could work so that there's a possibility that he could become the father to Audra?
Since I found his location, yes, sir.
Would you say that you reached out to him on more than 5 to 10 occasions?
Every month since the time I had located him.
Okay. And did he ever respond back to you?
I received one letter from him during the entirety of that time.
When was that letter?
It was dated that he wrote it in July, but I didn't receive it until August.
In that letter, did Mr. Henry advise that he wanted to work services?
He had stated that he would do what he needed to.
Okay. And since then, when you received that letter in August, did you reach out to him after that to try to set up services for him?
I consistently reached out to him to get a response.
Did he ever contact you back?
After that first letter, no.
Now, did you find out that he was reincarcerated at some point in time?
He had continued to stay incarcerated since I found him initially at Corpus,
Okay.
but he would move from different units.
And did the letter that you sent to him, did it consistently have addresses so that he could write you back?
Yes, as well as 2 pre-addressed envelopes and pre-stamped envelopes. So all he had to do was write down his information and let it send out.
Do you know if since August he has been continued to be incarcerated?
Yes, as far as I know, he is still incarcerated.
And do you know, did you ever develop a service plan for him?
Yes, he had a service plan.
Do you know if he attempted to work any services?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Did he ever contact you and say that he was working services?
No, sir.
Did he ever reach out to you to say, hey, I can't work these services. What can I do in some other form or fashion?
No, sir.
Did the court order that he work services through a service plan?
Yes, sir.
And would that have been services necessary in an attempt to reunite Audra with Mr. Henry?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what his current?
I think he's frozen.
Hello.
We can hear you, Mr. Henry.
Okay. All right. I thought something happened over here on.
No,
on
it's
this
not you. It's Mr. Albee that was frozen.
one. Okay.
All right, Mr. Albee's dropped off. We'll wait for him to come back.
Okay. Am I allowed to speak on anything right now?
Not yet.
Okay.
All right, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. I want to get all the lawyers in a breakout room. Mr. Albee, you can proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Hutchinson, I'm just going to ask a couple of more questions today. First of all, in the letter, the one letter that you received from Mr. Henry, did he tell you that he was of Indian descent, that he had Indian ancestry?
He did not confirm it, no.
Did he mention that he was a member of any particular Indian tribe?
No, sir, not to me.
During the time that we were involved in the case, you were involved in the case, there had been some hints that he might be of Indian heritage. So we had reached out to the Bureau of Indian Affairs to try to find if he was a member of any tribe.
That's correct.
As far as you know, we hadn't gotten any response back.
As of January, end of January, we had not.
Do you know how long his sentence is?
I can only tell you what the website says, and I believe that said it was 2025 or 2029 was his date of release.
And even though from March of 2022 through January of 2023, when you had the case, he may have been out for a short period of time. He never was able to have a child in his care during that period of time.
No, sir, he was not.
Is it your understanding that this case began in September of 2021?
That's correct.
Do you know the exact date that the petition was filed?
I could not answer that, no.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Mr. Adams is gone. Mr. Barfield, any questions?
Not of this witness, Your Honor. I think we need to probably get some testimony from my client at this particular time based on what we at the bench conference, rather.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Hutchinson, is it my understanding from reading the report now the foster parents say they're not going to adopt this child, or do you know that?
I couldn't answer that question. You would need
Okay.
to speak with Miss Tamara.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Anyone else have further questions for Ms. Hutchinson?
Just a couple of placement questions, Your Honor,
Sure.
if she knows.
Uh-huh.
Ms. Hutchinson, Audra's placement's currently kind of up in the air. Is that correct?
Again, I don't know that information. I've been told a little bit, but I couldn't answer honestly.
Okay, then I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Then can Ms. Hutchinson be excused, or do we need her to stick around?
She can be excused, Your Honor.
Anyone have any objections? Okay. All right, Ms. Hutchinson, thank you for your testimony. I'll go ahead and release you so you can go about your day's business.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. This time.
I think I need to call Miss Tamara Ring, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Ms. Ring, if you don't
You're a St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist,
Yes, I am.
and you are currently the caseworker child subject of this suit.
Yes, I am.
And she is currently in a foster home.
Yes.
And tell me, who is the foster mother in that home?
It's Catherine.
And she's the same person that Ms. Hutchinson just testified that the child had been placed with primarily since the child was removed.
Yes.
And Catherine is the adoptive mother of Audra's half sibling.
That's correct.
Is there a question currently as to whether or not Catherine wants to continue to have Audra in her care?
Yes.
And why is that?
Audra requires lots of attention. She's struggling with really sharing attention with the other children in the home. Audra also has several needs. She's on a sensory diet. She's got to be constantly supervised because she tries to eat things that are non-food, like shoes. She'll eat parts of the sippy cup, pick at things on the wall. And so her foster mom feels that she might benefit in a foster home that is able to give her more of the one-on-one attention that she needs and she craves. The foster mom has not put in a discharge notice on Audra. She wants to stay as much involved as possible with Audra throughout this whole process and even afterwards.
Now, has Audra been diagnosed with any of these behaviors due to the conditions that she was born in?
It's my understanding there hasn't really been a diagnosis due to her age.
And she's just a reminder, she's not even 2 years old, right?
That's correct. She won't be 2 until June.
You've had the case since January.
Since the end of January, yes.
Has Mr. Henry reached out to you in any form or fashion, or to anybody else at St. Francis, or as far as you know, the Department of Family and Protective Services, asking for services or help or doing whatever he needs to do to have the child?
No.
I'll pass witness, Sean.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ring, if the Dallam County District Clerk's records indicate that this case was filed on September 17th of 2021, would you have any reason to dispute that?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Barfield, questions?
Not for this witness at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner.
So Audra, over the last month or so, Audra was taken from the foster home and put in a respite care. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes, she went to a respite home for several days.
Okay. What was the reason for that?
It was kind of to see if Audra does better on a one-on-one situation and kind of to give foster mom a break. And because Audra is a lot.
Okay. And that didn't go well, not necessarily, it just wasn't a good respite placement. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
How quickly was Audra removed from that respite home?
She was there 6 days. We started with the second we started seeing some concerns with the respite provider. Foster mom immediately went to pick her up.
Okay. And was there, when Audra went back to foster mom, was there any concerns with Audra about anything that had happened in that respite home?
Yes, there was concerns about her appearance and how dirty she was.
Other than being dirty and her appearance, was she harmed in any way?
There's still a pending investigation. I can't really. She had some bruises, a bruise on her back and some on her legs. I don't have the answer for if it was typical toddler activities or not.
Okay. How currently, does she have any health issues?
No, just her sensory needs.
Just and she has some special care issues like you testified to, but other than those, she seems to be in good health.
Yes.
Okay. And as you stated in your testimony with Mr. Alvey, her placement is currently kind of up in the air. Is that fair to say?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair to say.
I mean, as far as her permanent placement, I'll put it.
Yeah, they've decided that they aren't able to provide her with what she needs.
How is the current foster placement willing to keep Audra in placement until another permanent placement can be found?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Does the department have any plans to currently to put Audra in any sort of respite placement in the near future?
No.
Audra was actually placed in another home prior to the current foster placement. Is that correct? From
yes.
September to January or so of 22?
Yes.
Has the department explored maybe that being a more permanent or appropriate placement for Audra?
To returning her to her previous placement?
To her initial placement when she was first removed. If I'm remembering right, I think it was a kinship placement.
We have not explored that option. I would have to go back and read more up on it, but there was concerns about Audra's care in that home, which is why she was moved.
Do you remember what concerns were raised at the time?
Off the top of my head, I do not know. I'd have to go back and look through the original workers' documentation.
Okay. But I guess to sum up, right now, Audra is in a placement that's willing to keep her until another more permanent placement can be found?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, John.
All right, thank you. Anyone have further questions for Ms. Ring?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Alvey, any other witnesses?
Judge, I'm going to allow Mr. Brooks to call his client. I think we need to get some testimony from him. And then, so I'm not going to call him. So I won't call any additional witnesses at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barfield, witnesses?
I'll call my client, Your Honor, Mr. Henry.
All right, Mr. Henry, would you raise your right hand? You swear the
Yes,
testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Henry, we spoke yesterday on the telephone, did we not?
Yes, sir, we sure did.
Okay, and I kind of advised you as to the status of where this case was in regards to progression in the court system. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you indicated to me yesterday that you are a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that sure is.
And is that in Oklahoma?
Yes, sir, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
Okay. And Okmulgee, Oklahoma?
Okmulgee, Okmulgee.
Now,
I'm sorry, would you spell that again slower, please?
I believe it's Okmulgee.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
And you heard the testimony today that you from some of the workers as to the status of your daughter in this case. Is that right?
Yes, sir, I have.
And are you asking that the department reach out to the tribe based upon the testimony you've heard today?
Yes, I think so. I think that would be needed. I believe that would be needed, yes.
Now, one other thing, you're located in the Clements unit in Amarillo, is that correct?
No, sir, I'm at the Clemens unit in Brazoria, Texas.
Brazoria, Texas. Okay. I've talked to you by phone, so
yes,
you're the Clemens, not Clements unit then.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
Clemens.
Okay. And also, you mentioned to me yesterday you have a new parole date coming up. Did you say October of this year?
Yes, sir. It comes up in October, but give or take a month or two beforehand, and then according to the date, and then the answer will show up within a month or two afterwards.
Now, do you anticipate being released at that particular time?
Yes, sir. As far as I know, I'm under the FI5 program. The only reason I was sent back down was because I was not able to attend my meetings there in Corpus Christi. Parole had shot me from Amarillo, Texas to Corpus Christi with nothing. I mean, I had nothing, so it was hard for me to adapt to the city way of life, I guess you could say. And I wasn't making my meetings on time, so they just violated me and they sent me back down here. That's when I first got a letter from the St. Francis.
Would you
situation? I mean.
Okay. Would you like for the St. Francis worker to make contact with you to provide you a copy of a service plan so that you would at least have the opportunity to work whatever services that you can work while you're incarcerated?
Yes, sir. That's what I was going to ask for, if there was any possible way, because through my transfers from unit to unit, all my mail is starting to catch up with me. And I'm just now getting some of the letters that were sent months ago, and because of the way the system is set up, it's hard for all of our mail to stay with us. So we have to lose our stuff at some point or another. But yeah, I would really like to get more involved. I would really like I would like to do anything and everything that I possibly can, and that's my daughter. I'm just finding out that I am the father, and I want to do everything that's in her best interest. I want to do everything I can for her, and whatever it takes, I'm willing to do it.
Okay. All right. Judge, I think based upon the bench conference, that's what I have. If the court needs something further, just let me know and I can delve into it.
No, I think that's fine. Mr. Henry, let me just try to clarify what you said. Your next parole hearing date is in when?
I believe it's October.
Do you have a date, an actual date?
They show my short way showing. I think it's 11/4/25.
No, I'm saying your next parole hearing date. When are you eligible for parole again? October. Do you have a specific date in October?
Just the 4th, I believe.
11/4.
11/4.
Well, 11/4 would
10/4. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
What it shows
All right.
on my paper.
Mr. Turner, do you have any questions for Mr. Henry?
I do not, Your Honor.
And Mr. Henry, did you say, is it the Muskogee Creek Indian Nation? What's the official name of the tribe?
The official name is the Muskogee Creek Nation.
Okay.
Creek is the tribe. But
Yeah. Okay.
Muskogee Creek Nation.
All right. Anyone else have further questions for Mr. Henry?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Henry, just to be clear, I've had this come up before. Are you a registered member of the Muskogee Creek Nation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right, then. Does anybody have anything further that we can do today?
May I speak something? May I say something, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Look, I haven't been a perfect angel, as you can see. But this is my blood that we're talking about, and I want to do anything and everything that I possibly can. I want to do what the right things to do. My situation's a little unorthodox here, but I want my daughter. I've never dealt with CPS before. I have no reason. I have 2 older kids that have never even seen that. I've never even dealt with any CPS situations in my life. And, you know, I've been away from Kelly since I met her, and I've just been going off of hearsay from this point on, you know, and I mean, I don't want to give up no rights to my daughter. I want to do everything that I'm supposed to. I want to do the right thing. I want to care for her. I want to love her. I want every bit of communication that I can possibly get. I know my situation is a little messed up at this moment, but I'm only on a violation. I didn't pick up no new charges. I'm currently under the FI5 program, which is meetings, and you know, my goal is to get through all this and get it done and over with and put this behind me. But I want to be a father to my daughter, and if that's what I want to do. And if there's anything that I can do, I'm on board. I'll work any programs. I'll work any services or whatever's needed. But yeah, I don't want to terminate nothing that has anything to do with my daughter. Not for me.
All right, let's talk about that. What are you currently incarcerated for? What was your offense that you were convicted of?
Possession of drugs.
Possession of what?
Methamphetamine.
What degree of felony was it?
I believe it was on an enhancement, but it was possession over 1 less than 4.
Okay, so possession of controlled substance under the Texas Penal Code.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. That answers the question I needed. Okay. All right. Nothing else today from anyone?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
All right. So I met with the attorneys. We had a breakout room to talk about this case. It's a really messed up case. Mr. Henry, we couldn't locate him because he was incarcerated and bounced around, as Mr. Barfield put it, like a ping pong ball. So, we have now confirmed that he, well, at least from his testimony, we'll have to verify that he is, in fact, a registered member of the Muskogee Creek Nation. Even though the department did what they could, since they couldn't find Mr. Henry, they notified the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Now that we have this information, we've got to do everything we can to contact the Muskogee Creek Nation personally and see if they have any interest in this child or what their position is going to be. We started this final hearing, on February 17th. And recessed it. My calculations show that we have until May 18th, 2023 to come to a conclusion in this case, or it will be dismissed by operation of law. So I need to look. All right, I'm going to recess this case to reconvene on May 17th, 2023. That will be by Zoom, just like today's hearing. So parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of May 17 to see what time on May 17 that hearing will take place. Mr. Albee, in the meantime, St. Francis or the department need to contact the Muskogee Creek Nation and make them aware of how time sensitive this is. If they want to proceed in any way, they need to do whatever they need to do, and then they need to be available on that day. Someone, an expert, if we needed the expert, or someone to tell us what their position is so that we can wind this case up. So.
Yes, sir. And we'll get on that immediately.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, and we will recess until May 7th. Mr. Albee's with us for the department. Ms. Brown is with us for CASA. Mr. Barfield is with us representing the child. Mr. Michelson is with us representing the alleged father, Mr. Herrera. Mr. Hill, are you covering for Ms. Archer? You're muted. He's shaking his head yes.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, that accounts for all of the parties and attorneys, and I have no one in the waiting room. Mr. Albee?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Summer Daniels, I think it's her last name, I apologize. She's in here as the second Luke Dyer.
Okay, all right, that establishes who the mysterious Luke Dyer number 2
And
is.
Ms. Daniels, you're a St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist.
Yes, sir.
And in that capacity, you are familiar with the child, the subject of this suit.
Yes.
And the child's name is what?
Emmeline.
And Emmeline is how old?
She will be 2 at the end of this month.
And her mother is Caitlin Ramirez.
Yes.
Caitlin Ramirez is currently incarcerated.
Yes, she is.
And she alleged, well, she told us that Nathan Herrera was not the father to this child.
Yes.
But Mr. Herrera, Nathan Herrera, stepped forward and believed he was the father to this child.
Yes.
And was there a DNA screening ordered, and did that take place?
Yes, it did.
And did that DNA screening prove that Mr. Herrera is actually the biological father to Emmeline?
Yes, it did.
And you have filed the results of that screening with the court?
Yes.
Your Honor, we would ask the court to take judicial notice of that screens that has been filed.
All right, so noted.
Are you asking today then that Mr. Herrera be adjudicated as the biological father to Emmeline?
Yes.
Mr. Herrera has stepped forward pretty much from the time that Emmeline came into the care of the department.
Yes, he has.
And has voiced that he would like to have the child and raise the child.
Yes, he has.
Have you had an opportunity to talk with Mr. Herrera on more than one occasion?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to go to his home?
Yes.
When you went to his home, was it an appropriate place for a 2-year-old child to be?
It appeared to be, yes.
And for the record, Emmeline's not quite 2. She's just short of 2, correct?
Correct.
We had conversations with Mr. Herrera about what contact he had with Emmeline prior to the child coming in to care.
Yes.
How much contact did he have with Emmeline prior to coming into care?
He had stated he had not had much contact. He was kept away because the mother said he was not the father.
When you went to Mr. Herrera's home, was there anyone that lived in that home with him?
He said no one lived with him.
So it would be, if we return the child to him, it would be Mr. Herrera taking a almost 2-year-old little girl that he doesn't have a whole lot of contact with.
Correct.
Do you believe that it would be contrary to the general welfare of Emmeline to return her to Mr. Herrera today?
Yes.
Not saying that we can't eventually return him to Mr. Herrera, but doing that at this time would not be in Emmeline's best interest.
Correct.
Have you talked with Mr. Herrera about beginning services?
Yes.
And have you developed a service plan for him?
A service plan was developed prior to my coming on the case, but it has been developed and he does have a copy.
And do you know if that service plan was ordered by the court, or did the court wait to order it until he was determined to be the father?
It was waited until he was determined.
And did that service plan set forth the services that Mr. Herrera needs to do to have Emmeline return to him?
Yes.
And was it specifically tailored to Mr. Herrera's needs, as far as you know?
As far as I know, yes.
Are you asking the court today to order that service plan and make it an order of this court today?
Yes.
What kind of visitation is Mr. Herrera receiving currently with this child?
He has not had any visitation until I believe today. He's probably on his way to have a visit with her for the first time since she's been in care.
And you're asking the court to go ahead and continue visitation in order that be continued, but we want to increase that as we go. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hill?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Michelson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Summer, you have visited with Nathan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and Nathan was not aware of the child's removal at the time, correct?
I'm not sure.
You're operating as if he didn't, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and in developing a plan for a father who wasn't aware that the child was removed, what does that plan look like?
Do you mean you want to know what services are set out, Mr. Michelson? That's kind of an open-ended question.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is pretty overly broad. I guess what I'm saying is in most family service plans, when a child is removed, it's tailored towards that removal and returning the child. In Nathan's case, he wasn't aware that the child was removed. And so I'm wondering what kind of services it would take for the child to be returned to him.
The service plan was set up for parenting classes, counseling, and things like that. Which he was in contact with the previous caseworker about the removal. So he did know at the time the service plan was written, she had been removed.
Okay. And in terms of the visitation plan, how do you foresee that working in terms of the step-up plan?
So it's tailored to the best interest and safety of the child, just based on Nathan and the child specifically.
Okay. With his desire to have the child at some point, is it going to be like 1 hour a week, or are you planning on more time based on his interest?
So right now he is allotted 2 hours per week. And then we wanted to increase towards unsupervised visits and overnights and weekends.
Okay.
As a step up.
Okay. And when you visited his home, did it appear that he had room for Emmeline?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And did she have a bed?
She did.
Okay. And were there toys there?
Yes.
And was there appropriate house?
I'm sorry?
Was there appropriate food in the house?
Yes, there was.
Okay. It didn't look like a bachelor's refrigerator, in other words.
No.
Okay, good. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Barfield?
No questions, just recommendation, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Daniels, have you done typical background checks on Mr. Herrera?
Yes.
Does he have criminal history?
He does.
And do you know what that's for?
Yes.
Tell me what that is.
There's a history of possession of marijuana, criminal trespassing. There's traffic offenses, assault a peace officer, and harassment of a public servant.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mr. Howard, do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Hill, any witnesses?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Michelson, any witnesses?
We would call Nathan Herrera. Nathan, what is your current living situation?
I live in Pampa, Texas at a 3-bedroom house.
Okay.
Pretty stable life.
Do you rent or?
I rent.
Okay. And how long have you rented that property?
That property, I've probably been there going on 5 or 6 months.
Okay. And do you have a month-to-month rental agreement, or is it a lease?
Yeah, I signed a 1-year lease and I pay monthly $900.
Okay. And do you plan on staying there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have any sorts of income to support Emmeline?
Sorry, you cut out. Do I have the source of income?
Yes. Do you have a steady source of income?
Yes, sir. I work at a specialty welding machine in Pampa, Texas. I get paid every 2 weeks and I get plenty of overtime if I need it.
The way you describe it, you have a kind of an interesting job. What is it that you do?
We make perforating gun barrels. It's for the oil field to perforate wells. It's basically a big pipe bomb for the oil field.
Okay. And how long have you been at that job?
A year and I would say 6 months almost. And I've done nothing but improved. I started as a hand, went to night shift shipping lead, and then I went to running the guns. And then actually yesterday, I just got a new position as a day shift shipping lead.
Okay. And so you're taking more leadership as it's offered.
Yes, sir. I recently stepped down from nights due to trying to get my daughter back, and they're just kind of helping me get back up to where I was at, but on a day shift schedule.
Okay. And have you ever previously been accused or convicted of any child abuse or neglect?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay. Do you have any physical or mental health conditions that would impair your ability to take care of Emmeline?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have other children?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And do those children reside in Texas?
Yes, sir. One resides in Dallas at the moment, and my son resides in Pampa, Texas.
Okay. The child that resides in Dallas, how old is that child?
He just turned 3 March 7th.
Okay. And the one that lives in Pampa, how old is that child?
He is 4 and turns 5 December 21st.
Have they ever been the subject of a CPS case?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Do you have regular visitation with either of the child?
Yes, it's harder to see my daughter because she's all the way in Dallas, but I believe she's working on moving to Pampa, so that'll change.
Do you have an established visitation schedule with both children?
I'm allowed to see my son whenever I want here in Pampa, and the one in Dallas is just kind of working around both schedules.
Okay. And do you pay child support for those children?
I pay child support for my son, and my daughter's mom doesn't want child support.
Okay, just to clarify, which child do you pay support for? The child in Dallas or the child in Pampa?
Pampa, my son, Owen.
Okay. And do you have the capability of providing for Emmeline's basic needs?
I have more than the ability to do that, sir.
Why don't you just do that for me?
Do what?
Describe that for me then.
I mean, I make more than enough to have money left over after paying all bills. I make more than $2,000 every 2 weeks after paying child support. I have a good paying job.
How about things that would be considered Emmeline, like her room, toys, or grandparents?
Oh, yes.
Uncles and aunts?
Yes. I'll be able to apply or provide toys, all that. I have more than enough support from my family.
Which includes who?
My mother. She is actually willing to move in if it speeds this case up faster.
Okay. Does your mother live in Pampa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you willing to comply with any court orders that would incur in terms of custody, visitation, any required services?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'll do whatever it takes to get my daughter home.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Herrera, what's your current work schedule hour-wise?
Right now I'm working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Sometimes we work Saturdays.
And what is your plan as far as when you're working, who would be taking care of Emmeline?
I have plenty of family members who have already stepped up and are willing to do so if they're allowed. If not, I have been looking into First Baptist Church daycare that would take care of her from, I believe, 8 to 5:45. And anytime before that, I have family members, my sister. I have plenty of people that will help me and are willing to help me.
A lot of people right there in Tampa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how often do you see your son? You said you can see him whenever you want. Kind of what's a typical visitation?
Usually I see him a couple of hours. I try to go on the weekends as long as I'm not working. It just kind of goes based off of if I'm working or not.
So you don't have a court order visitation with him. It's just whatever you and his mom can.
Yes, it's just a two-party agreement between two parents.
Do you ever keep him overnight?
No, sir, not recently.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Albee, do you have questions for Mr. Herrera?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Hill?
No, sir.
Mr. Barfield?
Just a couple, Your Honor. Mr. Herrera, what kind of contact have you had with Emmeline thus far?
I believe I first got to get in contact with her when she was about 9 months old.
Okay.
I was told by Caitlin that I was the father, and we did an at-home DNA test from CVS, and that proved that I was, and we were together for a couple of months. So I would say 2 or 3 months I had contact with her, and then once we split up, I was no longer the father, apparently, even though we did the DNA test. So she just kind of cut me out, and I've been trying to get in contact ever since to see her.
Okay. Now, in regards to that, you didn't file any other lawsuits or paternity tests to try to gain custody prior to the CPS in this particular matter, correct?
Yes, sir, I did. I tried getting a hold of the Attorney General to place myself on child support so that way they would do the paternity testing.
Okay.
But I was basically getting the runaround. It's just kind of hard because it was taking forever. So then it turned out to go this route instead.
Okay, so all I'm trying to establish, there's no other court orders somewhere that we need to be aware of.
No, sir.
Okay. Also, you mentioned you live in a 3-bedroom house. Who resides there with you?
It's just me at the moment. I have a dog as well.
What type of dog?
It's a pit bull, a blue fawn.
Okay. And how old is that dog?
He is 9 months and 6 days, I believe.
Okay. All right. Now, do you have in your home furnishings and everything at this particular, I mean, if we were today, do you have furnishings and everything to take care of a child at this age?
Yes, sir, I do. I have a fridge full of food. I have couch. I have Carter's bed, blankets, diapers, wipes, hygiene, shoes, clothes, toys. I have everything I absolutely need. I have a baby monitor in her room, cameras around the house. My house is more than ready for her to come home.
Okay. And you don't have any criminal charges pending now, or is that my understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right. Mr. Herrera, you heard Ms. Dinos talk about your criminal history. What was your last offense? What year?
November 2019. That was the harassment and the assault with the public servant and peace officer.
Were you on probation for that, or did you go to prison? Or
I am on probation. I'm on probation for that right now.
Okay.
It happened whenever I was young, dumb, and drank.
How long are you on probation for?
It'll be 2 years.
You mean you've been on 2 years, or you will?
Yes.
And what was the length of probation you were sentenced to?
I believe it's 2 years. I'm waiting to see about talking to the judge over payment issues, because whenever I first got placed on probation, I did not have the job I have now.
Okay. But there's no motion to revoke pending against you for anything?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Not had any trouble with your probation officer?
No, sir. I am just waiting to hear from them on the payment issues. I have the money to pay them and then to be released if they decide to do so.
Okay. And have you, all the family members that you say that can help you with, and I guess she goes by Carter, you call her Carter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you given all the names and contact information for those people to either St. Francis or the department?
No, sir, they have not asked for it, but as soon as
Okay.
we get off of here, I can do so.
Sure. Okay. I appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else
Yes,
have
sir.
questions for Mr. Herrera?
No, sir.
Can I talk?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's make it,
Mr.
let's make it short.
Okay. He has not been allowed around my daughter for a reason. His kid's mother that lives out of town actually has a restraining order against him, and he has no relationship with either of his other kids.
Ma'am, how do you know that? How do you know there's a restraining order?
Because his probation was violated for violating it when I was dating him.
Do you have personal knowledge of all this?
Yes, his kid's mom is willing to testify that he has no business around anybody's child.
Well, then I suggest that you talk to your lawyer and you arrange to have people testify on your behalf if you'd like, because what you're telling me is hearsay.
When we broke up, he held me at gunpoint. That's why he's not allowed around my child. I would rather her stay in foster care than go to him. He has no business with the child.
What are you in jail for right now?
Probation violations.
What are you on probation for?
Theft.
What'd you steal?
Money in 2015.
Okay. Well, I tell you, since you're incarcerated, when we're through here, I'm going to put you in a breakout room. Well, no, I'm not going to do that, Mr. Hill. That's not fair to you. You just need to contact your lawyer and discuss these things so that your lawyer can present a case for you. So obviously, I'm not sending the child home with you today because you're in jail. So.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then. Anybody else have any further witnesses? Okay, then, Mr. Barfield, recommendations?
Your Honor, I believe that at this particular time, I'm going to recommend that placement continue for the time being so that some of this stuff can be flushed out regarding the criminal stuff and the home and everything like that. I believe the child's safe and doing well. So my recommendation is temporary to the department for now. And hopefully Mr. Herrera can get on board with services and Ms. Ramirez can do as you requested to her. But for today, I don't feel comfortable sending the child out of department care.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Brown, Casa?
Yes, Your Honor, I agree 100% with Mr. Barfield. And we actually do have documentation naming Mr. Herrera in a protective order.
Okay.
And so we have many concerns with Emmeline going back home with him right now. She also is, she's making progress, but there's a lot that she had to, that her foster parents had to work out with her. And so there's therapies that she's involved in. And so we really have concerns with that baby going back with him today. And we're also asking that anger management be added, anything addressing violence or anger in the service plan for him to address those issues.
All right, Mr. Dyer's shaking his head no. If you'd unmute, Mr. Dyer.
Judge, if we have concerns that Mr. Herrera is a person using violence or there's patterns of coercion or control in relationships that he has with women, anger management is contraindicated. The only thing that works is a better intervention and prevention program. That's it.
All right. All right. Well, I don't know if that's contained in his service plan or not. I don't have his service plan.
We can add it.
Your Honor.
Yes.
That protective order that she is speaking of is invalid. There was no proof of that whatsoever. Basically what I was told. I'd be more than happy to listen.
Judge,
we're not going to get into hearsay.
An opportunity to try to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah,
so.
we're not going to get into hearsay. Nobody's going to tell me what, but because a protective order is invalid or not invalid, that's a legal conclusion. I'll just tell you this. First of all, based on the DNA testing, I do find that Nathan Herrera is in fact the biological father. I will establish that parent-child relationship today. I'm going to continue the department's temporary managing conservator, continue the current placement. I'm going to order that Mr. Herrera have as much visitation as can be physically worked out between, I realize that the child's in Lubbock and he's in Pampa. So we've got our next hearing already scheduled in this case, the initial permanency hearing for June 7th, 2023. I agree with Mr. Barfield and I agree with Ms. Brown. I've not been presented enough evidence today, but I've heard some concerning things. So I do find that there's a continuing danger to the physical health and safety of Carter to be returned to her father today, and that it would be contrary to the welfare of Carter to be returned to her father today. But I'll just let everybody know, we've got a hearing coming up in about a month. I'm sorry, 2 months from today. Everybody better come loaded for bear to talk about some of these allegations I've heard today, because if I don't hear enough, as everyone knows, under the new family code, I may not have a choice but to send the child home with Mr. Harass. So everybody needs to be prepared for that next hearing. So, okay, all right, that will conclude this hearing. Again, the next hearing will be on June 7th. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so all parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket today or so in advance. Mr. Harris is with us representing the child. Mr. Adams is with us representing the mother, Miss Sorrell. Mr. Adams, are you expecting your client?
Your Honor, I have not been able to get in touch with her.
Okay, she's not in my waiting room. And Ms. Kincaid is with us representing the father, Mr. Sorrell, who is with us. I have Megan Jepcott and Rachel Baca in the waiting room. Do we need either of those?
Rachel's the FBS worker who's in charge of working the services in this case, and Megan's her supervisor, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. That accounts for everyone except for a party that's in our next hearing. So this case was set for 11 o'clock. It's now 11:24. We will proceed in Ms. Sorrell's absence. Mr. Albee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will call Rachel Baca. Rachel, you're an FBS worker working for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. All right.
Yes, sir.
First of all, Madison's living with her grandparents. Is she being taken care of at her grandparents' home?
Yes, sir. There has been an issue with medical coverage. She doesn't have Medicaid or any other kind of medical insurance, and that has become a problem. She had to go to the emergency room on April 2nd, and she has follow-up appointments and no medical coverage.
Okay. Is she being offered any services by you or anybody from the department at this time?
Yes, sir. She's in counseling with Tina Souter.
Okay. And as far as you know, that's going well?
Yes, sir.
Her mother is Stacy. Has Stacy been asking, I mean, she was asked to work services. Has she made any efforts to work any services at this time?
No, sir.
Have you even been able to make any contact with Stacy at this time?
No, sir.
There were allegations of neglect in the home due to substance abuse and arguments between Stacy and Madison. And at this point in time, because Madison's not at home, Stacy doesn't seem to care. Would you agree with me?
I agree. Yes, sir.
Madison's father is Chris Sorrell, and is he still residing in Amarillo?
Yes, sir.
And has he made contact with you?
Yes, sir, he has.
Has he been working any services that you have offered him?
He completed a drug test on March 28th, and he has he's scheduled to start counseling with Delois Hinders on April 12th. And I'm not sure if he has contacted Lydia for substance abuse treatment yet.
Have you talked with him about whether or not he has any possibilities of insurance for Madison?
Yeah, we've discussed it, but he has not followed through with applying for Medicaid for Madison.
Is that something that you can help him do so that we can make sure that Madison's medical needs are met?
Yes, sir, I can do that. I am not certain if he will qualify because he's living with his brother who makes quite a bit of money, but we can definitely try.
And the truth is at the last hearing we had, Mr. Sorrell advised us that he was still looking for work in Amarillo. Do you know if he is employed?
He is not.
But in any event, we need to continue with Mr. Sorrell and possibly Miss Sorrell working services, and for sure Madison working services, so that we can at least attempt to try to find a solution to these medical issues.
Yes, sir.
And remind me, how old is Madison?
She is 15, about to be 16.
And where's she going to school? And Do you know if she's still regularly attending school?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. I'll pass witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Adams.
Ms. Baca, are you the one that filed the court report update?
The compliance report, yes, sir.
And you stated in there that you had asked Ms. Sorrell to take a drug test on March 7th. Is that correct?
I did not. It was the investigator who asked her to drug test.
Okay, but the investigator said that she wasn't able to get a hold of her. Is that correct?
I believe she texted her and Stacy did not respond.
Okay. I have no further questions, John.
All right, Mrs. Kincaid.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sorrell has maintained contact with you. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so far as beginning his services, he has complied in that manner. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so the main issue is trying to get an application for Medicaid just so that the child can hopefully qualify and get her needs met. Is that correct?
Yes, he actually has the application. It's just a matter of filling it out and providing whatever documentation they need.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Baca, what was the result of the drug test for Mr. Sorrell?
It was negative.
And as you testified to, he's been keeping in good contact with you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And with regard to the mom, any contact, or were you able to speak to her or see her?
No, I've made multiple attempts to try to contact her, and she has not responded to any of my attempts. I made another attempt on March 29th, and still I was not able to make contact.
Okay. Do we have a good address for her?
Yes, sir.
Because Madison has emailed me a couple times, and I've forwarded those to you about getting certain things that she needs: clothes, jewelry, a social security card. Do you have any idea if the mom would have these items that Madison needs and requests?
I do not know. According to Madison, she does, but I haven't spoken to Stacy.
Okay. And right now, Madison's placement is safe and appropriate.
Yes, sir.
And she's doing very well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And would it be your recommendation that placement be continued and improved?
Absolutely.
Pass the witness, Judge.
All right, thank you. Anyone have further questions for Ms. Baca?
Briefly, if I may, Your Honor.
Okay.
You said that his drug screen is negative. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So since that is negative, there aren't going to be any services required of him that involve substance abuse counseling. Is that correct?
I am not certain.
Okay. If he doesn't have a drug problem, then he wouldn't need services related to that. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is. We recommended the services because of alcoholism, and
Okay.
the test did not. It wasn't an alcohol test.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll pass one.
Okay. Anyone else have further questions? All right, then, Mr. Albee, any other witnesses from the department?
No, Your Honor, we would ask that you set a compliance hearing in 30 days. Just due to Madison's issues with medical support, we need Mr. Sorrell to step up and get those Medicaid applications done.
Okay. All right, then, Mr. Adams, any witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid.
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Harris, recommendations?
Your Honor, I've been in contact with Madison. She's really adamant on getting her things from her mom. I don't know how we can achieve that, but I think that there are some items that she needs. She's doing really well. She's taken dual credit classes, doing really well with her grandmother. I think that needs to continue. She wants nothing to do with her mom. And she's requested financial assistance from both of her parents. I don't know if in these deals we actually request child support, but if the court would consider possible child support to be redirected to the grandparents to assist, that would be my request.
Have there been any previous child support orders entered for either parent?
Not that I know of, Judge.
Mr. Sorrell, has there ever been any kind of court case involving you and Ms. Sorrell and Madison?
No, sir.
Okay, never been any court case. Okay. I don't know. Mr. Albee, you might look into that. I don't know whether I can order it in this or not. So
Judge, my understanding is these are not suit affecting a parent-child relationship. We would have to start a conservatorship issue.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can.
I don't think we can either. So, okay. All right, then I will order that the parents continue to work the services and that Madison's placement be continued and improved. I'll set the compliance hearing for the next hearing for May 17th, 2023. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of May 17th to see what time that hearing will take. Mr. Albee's with us for the department. CASA is with us. Mr. Adams is with us representing the child, and the mother, Miss Harvey, is with us.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call Ms. Summer Dan. Where is he currently placed?
He is placed in Houston in an RTC.
And were you able to discuss the placement with John before you took him down there?
I did not. The previous caseworker, Ada Ledford, did.
Have you had any contact with John since he has been down there in Houston?
Yes, I have.
And how's he doing?
He's doing okay. He's in school, receiving therapy. And I think he gets to go on outings and things with the facility.
That placement meeting all of his needs at this time?
They are.
It's a difficult situation, and John's having to adjust some. Is that correct?
Yes, he is.
But part of the reasons for the removal was that he needed to have some adjustments made.
Absolutely, yes.
Have you had contact with Miss Harvey?
Yes.
And were you able to sit down with her and develop a service plan for services that she may need to complete before John comes home?
Yes.
Did you go over that service plan with her so that she understood the services that were in the service plan?
Yes.
And did she acknowledge she understood those?
Yes, she did.
Did she sign the service plan?
Yes.
And is that service plan now on file with the court?
Yes.
Are you asking that the court make that service plan an order of the court today?
Yes.
The goal in this case from the beginning is that we get John the help he needs so that he can come home and be an acceptable member of society.
Yes.
And so reunification is still that goal.
Yes, sir.
In the meantime, would you agree with me that it would be contrary to John's general welfare to return him home today?
Yes.
I'll pass it, Ms. Sharon.
All right, thank you. Let's see, Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Has John indicated to you that he's unhappy where he's at?
He has. When I had talked to him.
Has he told you why?
He stated that at first he stated he wanted to go back to the previous placement, which was a 14-day step bed, and they had no room. But the last time I talked to him, he did say he was doing better, but he wanted to do everything he could to get back home.
Okay. Have you done anything to try to find a less restrictive placement that can provide the services he needs?
He's actually been accepted into the new facility, the RTC in Lubbock. So he will be moved back to Region 1.
Have you talked to him about that?
I have not yet, no.
Okay. I have no further questions, John.
All right. All right, Ms. Harvey, anything you need to tell me today?
No, sir. Sorry.
Okay. I would stay unmuted. I'm going to have a question for you. First of all, then, Ms. Daniels, is John on juvenile probation, or does he have a juvenile case still pending over this incident?
From my understanding, he's no longer on probation because he's involved with St. Francis.
Okay. All right. Ms. Harvey, I read in the report, that's why I want to ask you, that he had requested, he wanted to go home for his sister's birthday. I know that she's part of you and her both were part of the original reason that John's in the position he's in. Do you have a position on whether or not he should come home, or whether you would want him, or your daughter would want him there?
At this point in time, my daughter won't even talk to him on the phone yet. She's still very afraid of him.
Okay, all right.
So I would rather him not.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything that would cause her any harm. So, okay, that answered my question. Mr. Alvey, anything further?
No, Your Honor, rest.
All right, Mr. Adams, any witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Adams, anything to add as far as recommendations?
I would just recommend that he stay in a placement he's at and possibly be moved to the one in Lubbock, so it's closer to home.
Yeah, okay. Okay, then, all right, then, Ms. Talley or Ms. Brown, whoever, anything from CASA?
Nothing, Your Honor. If the Lubbock has become available, we're very happy with that option to get him up here so that family counseling and stuff can hopefully get started as well.
Right. Okay. Then I will continue the department as temporary manager conservator, continue John's current placement. I'll order the services for Ms. Harvey as contained in her service plan. I'll set the next hearing, the initial permanency hearing, for August 4th, 2023. That will be by Zoom as far as I know, like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or so in advance to see what time that hearing will take place on August 4th. In the interest of the Maudlin child, we're here on that the
will
permanency
conclude this
hearing. For those Mr. Alvey's with us for the department. Ms. Brown is with us for CASA. Ms. Grant is with us representing the child. Ms. Kincaid is with us representing the mother. Ms. Maudlin, who is with us, and Mr. Collins is not with us. No one's in the waiting room. This case was set for 11:50. It's now 11:56. We will proceed in his absence. Mr. Alvey?
We were hoping that Mr. Collins was going to be present today, Your Honor. Anyway, I would call Mavis Apoko Osanga. Mavis, you're a St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist.
Yes, sir.
And where is Abigail currently placed?
Abigail is placed in Wheeler, Texas, with her maternal grandfather.
And she's been in that placement pretty much since removal?
Yes.
And is that placement meeting all of her needs at this time?
Not all of her needs, but he's trying due to lack of transportation.
All right. The real issue is that Abigail is a 9-year-old girl that she's living with. Her grandfather, her grandmother has passed away. And it's a struggle for him to make sure that she gets to all of the things that she needs to get to.
Correct.
But is it your opinion that Abigail needs to stay in that placement at least until the end of the school year?
Correct.
And are you in contact with the placement to make sure that the department is providing whatever services and whatever we need or can provide to help the grandfather?
Yes, I've given him the number to transportation agencies where he can call and then request for transport to the various appointments.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt, Mr. Alvey, real quickly. Ms. Canada's informed me, it may be the person under Motorola Edge may not be Miss Maudlin. Ma'am, if you'd unmute, if you're Motorola Edge, you can hit *6 to unmute.
Judge, she's mother of Stephen Collins.
All right, so we don't have Crystal Maudlin, the mother, with us.
Your Honor, I was confused about that as well. I expected Miss Maudlin to be here, but I haven't been able to contact her.
Okay.
I called her, but she didn't respond to my call. I called her around 11:30, but she did not respond.
Okay, well, I admit Mr. Collins' mother may be with us, but she can't figure out how to unmute. So, but she's not a party, so we'll go ahead, Mr. Alvey.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Miss Apoko Asante, the mother to this child is Crystal Maudlin.
Yes, sir.
And Abigail was living with Crystal at the time of removal.
Yes, sir.
And that was in Wheeler.
Yes.
And since that time, Miss Maudlin has moved to Missouri.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but can anybody hear me yet?
I can hear you now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Cindy Bybee. I'm the Stephen Collins' mom. I finally figured out how to work it.
Okay.
And I'm going to call her as a witness, Your Honor, if you'll bear with me.
Okay. Well, let me get what's your name, ma'am?
Cindy.
All right. Apparently everybody was expecting Mr. Collins to be with us today. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, they went out of town real early this morning because he works for cleaning out pools and stuff, and they had to go out of town and do a couple of pools to clean out so the customers can open them up for summer, and they haven't made it back in town yet.
Okay. I'm going to just tell you about this right now before I forget. So, Mr. Albee, I guess he's not been served.
That's correct, Your Honor. That's the reason I'm going to call her as a witness.
Okay. Well, I just want to let her know, ma'am, when you talk to Stephen Collins, let Mr. Albee, you're going to order genetic testing unless he acknowledges he is the father.
I thought there had already been an acknowledgement proven up, but whatever the situation is, we will need to do that.
Okay, then I was going to tell her to let him know that if I order genetic, ma'am, if you'll let Stephen Collins know, if I do order paternity testing and he doesn't show up for that test, I can go ahead and find that he's the father, even if he's not really the father. So let him know that if that becomes an order of the court, he better comply with it. Okay.
Okay. Like I said, I think they already have. That's why we found out before that he was the father.
If he has, then my paperwork's incorrect.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not for sure.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Albee. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, Mavis. Crystal has moved.
Your Honor, can the witness be moved to the waiting room until she's called?
Are you invoking the rule? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to go ahead and put you in the waiting room since you're a witness. The rule's been invoked, which means you can't listen in to other testimony until you testify. So I would say you can just leave yourself unmuted if you like, and I'll move you into the waiting room. We'll call you back here very shortly.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Uh-huh. All right, Mr. Albee, once again, I'm sorry for the interruption.
Miss Mavis, Crystal moved back to Missouri. When was the last time you had contact with her?
I spoke to her last night.
And does she have a home of her own in Missouri?
No, she does not.
And has she been working any services that were ordered for her to be worked while she's in Missouri?
Okay, so since January up till this time in April, she just started doing her parenting classes like towards the end of March. So she's done just 2 more of her parenting classes. And then she had scheduled her psychological testing for April 28th. But with her accommodation, she's done nothing about her accommodation. She keeps telling me every month, I'll get the house on the 3rd of the next month, but the 3rd comes around and there's nothing. So
would you agree with me that the reasons for the removal of the child have not been alleviated at this time?
Yes, sir.
It still would be unsafe to return Abigail to Crystal at this time?
Yes, sir.
And it would be contrary to Abigail's general welfare to return her to her mother today?
Yes, sir.
As far as Mr. Collins goes, have we found an order in Missouri that either orders child support or visitation or something to that effect for Mr. Collins?
No, I've not looked into that, but on her birth certificate, he is listed as the father.
Okay.
On her what?
Birth certificate.
Okay, that doesn't cut it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So, and have you talked with Mr. Collins?
Yes.
And does he acknowledge that he believes Abigail is his child?
Yes, sir.
He was actually going to be here today because we haven't had proper service on him, correct?
Yes, sir.
We anticipated that.
Yes.
He has not worked any services has he worked any services for you?
No, he has not.
And in fact, because he's not been a party to the case yet, we haven't even ordered that he work any services at this time.
No, we did. But then initially he told me he wasn't going to do it. But towards the end of March, he told me he's now willing to do it. So I was going to set up services for him to do.
Okay. But you would agree with me. Well, first of all, do you know where he's living?
Well, he self-reported to me that he lives in a trailer with no working utilities. So in the woods somewhere, but then he didn't tell me exactly where.
And we've attempted to serve him a couple of times. We've not been had any luck. And where he's at in Missouri. Is that right?
Yes.
It would be contrary to Abigail's general welfare to return her to him at this time also.
Yes, sir.
Is there a plan in place for what we want to do with Abigail? I mean, we've discussed the fact that she's at her grandfather's in Wheeler, her family's in Missouri. What's the plan?
So I put in an ICPC for her to go back to her paternal grandmother in Missouri, but it's still pending at the moment.
And as far as we know, there aren't any other family in the state of Texas.
No.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll pass the witness.
All right. Well, I'll note we better be getting some kind of substituted service on him. If we can't find him, we're coming up for a hearing.
Judge, that's the reason I anticipated him being here. We were trying to get it done that way, but it didn't work.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right. All right then, Ms. Kincaid, questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Concerning Ms. Maudlin, now has she maintained contact with you?
Yes, she has.
Okay. And she does receive SSDI, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And she has had some housing issues since the beginning of this case. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, in December, she nearly died.
Yes. And she was in the hospital for a pretty extended period of time. Is that correct?
Yes.
And her, she's always had some health issues, but those health issues after the hospital visit, it took her some time to recover. Is that fair to say?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But she has begun working some of her services. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, she's done like two more parenting classes, and then she went for her psychologicals, and which will be done on the 28th of this month.
Okay.
So at least she's making improvement.
Okay. And has she done her psychosocial?
Yes, she completed that.
Okay. And how about the rational behavior therapy?
Yeah, she did. She completed that as well. So the only the things remaining are for her to get her own place and then do her psychologicals and then complete 4 more of the parenting classes.
Okay. And sorry, Judge, just 1 second.
Okay.
Apologize if you can hear something in the background. The trash guy is here and my dogs hate them. So apologies. I don't think that's going to stop for just a second, Your Honor.
That's all right.
But
it's a good thing we have a dog loving judge that understands.
Yes. So she has maintained contact with you and she has made progress on her services.
Yes, some of them, yeah.
Okay. But she did have some setbacks due to health issues and her mother passing away and moving to another state to get support from other family. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Grant.
Mavis, Abigail is currently taking some psychotropic medications. Am I correct?
Yes, 3 of them.
When was the last time she had a medication evaluation?
301.
And so nothing was changed on the 3-1 assessment of her medications. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. And has Abigail reported to you whether she feels her medications are helping or hindering her mental health?
No, but the grandfather was the one who was reporting that he wanted to go and see a psychiatrist so that they could take some of the medication off because he thinks it's too many for her.
Okay. And of the 3 medications, is St. Francis in agreement to schedule an evaluation with a psychiatrist to see if she's eligible to have some of the medications reduced or removed?
Yes. I gave him names of places that he could call in Amarillo. And he told me, I gave him 3 and he told me he has like 2 that he wants to go to, but I've not followed up on that yet.
Okay. So he will be the one setting the appointments. Will you be attending the appointments or how will your follow-up occur with the physician?
Oh, normally when they go, I get a report from the physician. So he will set up the appointment and then whatever date he's given, he'll go and then do the evaluation. And after that, I'll get the assessment.
Okay. And this is because Abigail is diagnosed with adjustment disorder. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the grandfather is noticing some reduced affect on the child with the 3 medications combined. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And so we want to ensure that we're not basically over medicating or over sedating Abigail to make sure that she's functioning as best she can. Is that correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we are in progress of addressing that issue.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. In regard to the health of the mother, is she diagnosed with any type of terminal condition that will prevent her from recovering to the point that she can physically care for Abigail?
Oh, she doesn't have any terminal. It's just her smoking and then she using oxygen at the same time. I think that's the only problem that she has. And then she complains of back pain. But the back pain, she says she's not able to lift like heavy stuff, but then she can go about her daily duties without any problems.
Okay. And she's currently, her source of income is currently just her SSDI. Am I correct?
Correct.
And do you foresee, or has she communicated to you any hope of recovering from the disability that causes her to be on SSDI?
No, because I was advocating for her to take a part-time job, and then she said she doesn't want anything to jeopardize her disability. So she told me she has to work just the minimum hours for her to maintain her disability.
But when you asked her to work the minimum hours, she was not interested in finding anything to supplement her income so that she could get into a home faster?
She says she will. And she, as a matter of fact, she texted me yesterday that she's hoping she get a job today.
Okay. And as to Mr. Collins, he's not ordered to pay child support at this point because we're not sure if we have already adjudicated him or if we're going to serve him and do that later. Is that true?
Krista had told me some time ago that the state of Missouri asked him to pay child support, but he never did. So, and she never followed up on that. So.
Okay, so if we were able to locate the Missouri order, we need to check the child support in that order, and Mr. Alvey would be following that process, not you, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with the grandfather's placement other than the lack of transportation?
Yeah, there was a recent incident, but we did a developmental plan, so everything is taken care of.
And can you describe the recent incident for the judge?
Oh, yeah. Abigail reported some things which later it was confirmed that she saw something different. So I spoke to her myself. I went to her school, spoke to her myself, and we were able to rectify whatever the missing piece was. And we did a developmental plan for Mr. Schaefer, and now he's following all the developmental plan that we asked him to.
Okay. And as far as Abigail's school, what services does she have in place at school right now that we're doing to assist her with her adjustment disorder, if any?
Oh, with Abigail's school, she has I think she has a learning, reading. Her reading is not too well. So her teacher, the day that I went there, the teacher was telling me she's helping her like with her reading and the maths so that she'll be able to catch up. She doesn't have any 504 accommodations, but anytime she needs help, she's been pulled to for the help that she needs.
Okay. And has she been evaluated for 504 accommodations?
Yeah, they did. And then they said she doesn't qualify for that. That's why she's been pulled.
Okay. And when was that evaluation done? If you recall, no need to look it up.
Yeah, I think it was done before Christmas because I was always like calling the school to find out. And they told me, no, she doesn't qualify.
Okay. Would it be wise when she starts school this coming September, if we're still involved in this case, that she be reevaluated for those accommodations?
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
And last question, does the grandfather who currently has Abigail have a driver's license if he were to have transportation?
He has a car right in front, but I've never asked him whether he has a driver's license or not. But I'm assuming, yeah, he does have it since he has a car, which is not working right in front of the residence.
Okay. Would you mind before the next hearing, if you remember to verify his ability to drive and his licensure status?
Okay, I will.
Do you feel that his health would prevent him from safely transporting Abigail if he could drive?
Yeah.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Anyone have further questions for Ms. Asante?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Albee, any other witnesses?
I would call Miss Bobby, Your Honor.
All right. Let's get her in. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Albee.
Miss Bobby, my name's Todd Albee, and I represent the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services in this case.
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Alvey. Could you ask the witness to turn on her camera and ensure that she is alone?
I am, but I can't figure out how to turn my camera on.
Let's go ahead.
That's okay. Your word is good for me. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
And Miss Bobby, my understanding is that you are the possible paternal grandmother to Abigail. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your son is, what's his name?
Stephen Collins.
And do you know where Stephen lives?
He is living with his dad right now in their trailer.
And do you know a address?
Not right offhand, I don't.
What
I just know
town?
where it's located at.
What town is he in or near?
Nevada, Missouri.
And does he believe that Abigail is his child?
Yes, he does.
And do you know if there are any court orders that order that he pay child support?
Yes, there is.
And is that out of Nevada, Missouri also?
Yes.
You have expressed some interest in Abigail coming and living with you.
Yes.
And we have asked for a home study to be done, and it's complicated, Miss Bobby. But has anybody come to your home to begin a home study?
Nobody's contacted me and nobody's come to the house on Abby, no.
Do you live in Nevada, Nevada, Missouri also?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kincaid.
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Grant.
Ma'am, do you know if the paternity case in Missouri is out of St. Louis?
I think it's out of Joplin, I think. Don't quote me, but I think it's out of Joplin.
Okay. Does Mr. Collins have other children?
Yes, he does.
Is that with Erica?
I don't know, Eric. I know there's one that's Deanna that he has 2 girls with.
How many children does Mr. Collins have?
He's got the 2, then Abby, and he's got a Jalen. And that's all that I know of.
Do you know how many of those children off the top of your head he supports financially?
Just Abby, because he helps with the 2 that he has with Deanna. Since they're separated, he gets them a week and she gets them a week.
Okay, so they're married and doing 50%.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And do you you said you know where Mr. Collins is, you know how to get there. Is it easy to get there or would it be hard for you to tell me?
It would be kind of easy. I don't know if you're familiar with Nevada, but when he usually has his girls, he stays with me.
Okay, what's your address, ma'am? If
Hang on.
Don't
Stop.
say it out loud.
Miss Bobby, stop.
All right.
I'm going to take this. This is our last hearing. I'm going to take us off of